Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans and their owner, Amy Adams. December 2022, she came out and she fired John Robinson, who was the general manager at that point in time with this organization. A lot of reports came out that he was not on the same page with Mike Vrabel. So she chose the head coach instead of the general manager. And this is pretty normal. You want your general manager to be lockstep with your head coach. You want your head coach to have that backing in the front office no matter what. So that's why a lot of teams go out there, and usually, this is not always the case, but more times than not, they'll hire a general manager and they'll let the general manager go out there and hire the coach that he wants. And we've seen this before in the NFL many a times. There have been situations to where they keep the head coach and they bring in a brand new general manager. And this was the case here. When she moved off of John Robinson, she brought in Rand Carthon to be the general manager in the front office. A lot of reports came out that him and Mike Vrabel did not see eye to eye. So she moved off of Mike Vrabel. This was a crucial mistake in my opinion. Mike Vrabel was a very good head coach with this organization. They got to the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill being the starting quarterback with the Tennessee Titans, which is crazy. The best years of his career came with the Titans, and we have to give Mike Vrabel a lot of credit for that. I understand you had Tim Kelly as an offensive coordinator, wasn't the best. Arthur Smith, he was good enough to become a head coach with the Atlanta Falcons. But you had a very good offensive supporting cast around Ryan Tannehill, a very good offensive line. One of the best running backs in the NFL at that point in time in Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown at the wide receiving position. They should have never traded A.J. Brown to begin with. And owners, they can come out and they can stop trades. We've heard Jerry Jones do this. The Cincinnati Bengals have done this in the past. The same with the Steelers. They will come out and say, hey, we're not making this trade here. We just can't trade this player. So she had to say so. At the end of the day, everything is ran by her. And you run these decisions by her. But they traded A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles for a first-round pick. And they selected Treylon Burks in the first round. Treylon Burks was a very good wide receiver at the college level at Arkansas. I would never take that away from him. But man, he was terrible in the NFL. He couldn't stay healthy. When he was on the field, the route running was abysmal. And he could not catch the football. And they were hoping that he could be the A.J. Brown replacement. He was a bust. And he's no longer on this roster. He's now scheduled a visit for the Denver Broncos later this week as I record this video. And I doubt that he'll be a star wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. He just didn't pan out. But when you trade one of the best wide receivers in the game and you basically got nothing for him, that's a terrible look. Derrick Henry, he leaves in free agency. And you have Mike Vrabel. It was more structure on the field every single year. You were a man contender in this division, even with injuries. He got the most out of this organization, but you let him go for nothing. You fired that man, and now he's with the New England Patriots. And look at how the Patriots look right now in the AFC. And yet the Tennessee Titans have not been the same since they fired him. But back to Rand Carthon here. He only lasted 2 years as a general manager with this organization. Just 2 years. She let him go. And she brings in Mike from Kansas City. Now, a lot of executives, they love Mike. They think that he could be the next great general manager in this league. We'll see. I'm not going to come on here and say that he is for sure. But he got to go out there and work in Kansas City. He got to see how that organization can work around a franchise quarterback. But Rand Carthon did the best that he could, in my opinion. It takes more than just 2 years to work in this league as a general manager. Coaches are different. But when you moved off of Mike Vrabel, you bring in Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan has been one of the worst head coaches in the NFL in recent memory. In 2 seasons, 4-19, that was his record. Will Levis was a starting quarterback his rookie season for Mike Vrabel. He didn't look like a franchise quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he had some good moments. That first game against the Atlanta Falcons, he had 4 passing touchdowns. And he had some strong outings with Mike Vrabel. And let's not forget about the entire Malik Willis situation. Malik Willis looked like an undrafted player with Tennessee. He goes over to the Green Bay Packers here. He had to start a couple games last season as a backup. He's a top backup in the NFL right now with Coach LaFleur. So coaching in the organization matters. But Will Levis had some good moments with Mike Vrabel. He looked like the next best quarterback with the Tennessee Titans. Still rough around the edges, gunslinging quarterback. He's going to have some dumb moments with interceptions. But he regressed every single week last season with Coach Callahan. And it just didn't work out. We didn't see these problems with Mike Vrabel. Now, you could say the NFL, they got film on him. They figured him out. But Will Levis had so many good moments that rookie season. He had little to no good moments with Brian Callahan being his head coach. So you go out there and you move on from Will Levis. We got to see Mason Rudolph for a couple games last season. Mason Rudolph will never be a starting quarterback in this league for multiple weeks. He's just a backup quarterback at best, and that's fine. He feels a need for the Steelers. He came in for a couple games last season. He looked completely terrible. He'd never looked that bad with the Steelers. And once again, we're talking about a player here that has never been regarded as a franchise quarterback, but even as a backup, he had the one good outing. After that, he looked completely terrible. Then they went back to Will Levis. The only reason why they set Will Levis down, he had a shoulder injury. So you move off of those quarterbacks, you bring in your guy with the first overall pick. You bring in Cam Ward, who was by far the best quarterback in college from this previous season. I had him. I had Shedeur Sanders. You select him with the first overall pick. Coming out of Miami, he was seen as this quarterback that could get the football out quick, an air raid system. And he can work in every single system. Coming out of high school, 0-star recruit, wing T offense. He worked his way up in the college ranks. This is what we asked for in today's NFL. He's not one of those players that was given everything. He had to earn everything at the college level and also in the NFL up to this point. But he goes to Miami, helps elevate that program to the next level. Beautiful deep passes, passes across the middle of the field, great passes outside the pocket, throwing the football across his body. He comes over to the Tennessee Titans. That first game against the Denver Broncos, they had this game won. Their defense played well enough to win this game. And they lost this matchup because of bad coaching. It was a situation late in the second quarter. All you have to do is just run the football out and take it to half. You have the lead in this game. The Broncos still have timeouts. You're in the back of your own red zone. You're in the 3-yard line. What does this idiot Brian Callahan do? He passes the football 3 times in a row, and you stop the clock, and you give the Denver Broncos the ball back. And you had 13 penalties in this matchup, and you lose this game. Now, it's not all on Brian Callahan. The players did let him down in certain moments. They had 4 drops in the fourth quarter by Calvin Ridley, the number 1 wide receiver with this roster, and the same with some rookies at the wide receiving position. But Cam Ward showed a lot of upside in that matchup. He's battling all the way through. Every single drive, he looked phenomenal against one of the best defenses in the NFL. Then you come out in week 2 against the Los Angeles Rams. You don't have an identity on the offensive end. You can't run the football very well. Your passing attack was non-existent. They're calling these long developing routes down the field when your quarterback was just beaten and battered the week before against the Denver Broncos. You go against this young defensive line of the Los Angeles Rams. They can constantly get to you over and over again. The scouting report was non-existent for Coach Callahan that week. You even have a tight end running a vertical route with Calvin Ridley and the rest of the players. You would think Tony Pollard maybe comes out as a check down. He never did. He was there to block. So now Cam Ward is in no man's land. No one is open. He just throws the football away. And you look at Coach Callahan, he's shaking his head. He's calling offensive plays here. He's the problem. When you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New Orleans Saints, first-year head coaches, they have a check down for their quarterbacks. We've seen it many times this year with the Jaguars and Travis Etienne. Even with Bryce Young, he had a terrible coach his first year in Frank Reich. At least he had checkdowns available because of bad offensive line protection. And he had 10 penalties in that matchup against the Rams, 8 penalties against the Colts in week 3. And you only score 12 points against the Broncos in week 1, 19 points against the Rams in week 2, 20 points against the Colts in week 3. Hey, that's a step up, but you lost this game 41-20, an in-division loss at that. Then the next week you lose against the Houston Texans 26-0. 0 points for an offensive head coach. You defeat the Arizona Cardinals, but let's be honest here, you shouldn't have won this football game. Amari had that fumble on the 1-yard line. It was an interception by Cam Ward in this matchup. That interception went for a fumble by the defender. He falls on top of the ball. And Tyler Lockett here in the back of the red zone, it goes for a touchdown. That's one of the luckiest plays in NFL history. And last night's loss was the icing on top. You lost to the Las Vegas Raiders, one of the worst teams in the NFL, 20-10. You got outcoached by Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and Patrick Graham. Their entire coaching staff went out there and they dominated the entire game. The Tennessee Titans were never in this matchup, even from the first snap, because Max Crosby had his way over and over again. The attention to detail was never there. When you go against a pass rusher like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, slide in protection towards that side, chip block, have a running back there, have a tight end, check and release route. It was none of that. You're just letting him wreak havoc over and over again on your rookie quarterback. And that is why Brian Callahan got fired. He should have never been the head coach of this organization to begin with. And I said this in last night's video. He never called offensive plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was just the offensive coordinator in name only. Zach Taylor called plays then, and he still called plays now. It is not hard to get a job in this league, apparently, if you have the right connections. This man was a nepotism hire because of Bill Callahan, his dad, who has done tremendous work in the past with offensive linemen. He's the current offensive lineman coach as I record this video. That's one of the biggest reasons why he got this job in the first place. The in-game management was terrible. Going for it on 4th and 2 in tight situations when you didn't need to just take your points. That is what got this man fired. As a quote-unquote offensive head coach, the Tennessee Titans scored the least amount of points in 6 games for any team since 1985 on the offensive end. They ranked 31st in passing offense, 31st in rushing offense, 32nd in total offense. And you do have some nice players on this roster. Calvin Ridley has looked bad this season. Don't get me wrong. But he was supposed to be this #1 wide receiver. You have Tony Pollard. I still believe that Tony Pollard is a very good running back in this league. You look at this offensive line. You have Peter Skoronski. There's a lot of upside with him. J.C. Latham at the tackle position. Those are 2 building blocks right there, especially Peter Skoronski. You have Cushenberry at the center position, who has been a very good center in the past for the Denver Broncos. Struggled last season, but right before he tore his Achilles, he had a very good football game. You have Kevin Zeitler at the right guard position, who is a veteran, who has worked with Coach Callahan in the past. The roster isn't great, but they have some players here that can help them out in certain situations with the right coaching. This is still a rebuilding team for a reason because of terrible ownership. But I look at someone like Calvin Ridley, I'm going to be completely honest here. I'll try to get rid of that contract. Trade him to a contender. Get him off this team. He's dropping too many passes. He just seems like he doesn't care to be on this roster right now. And you build with Alec A. Manor in that wide receiving room. We have Chime DK. These are not #1 and #2 wide receivers just yet. Alec A. Manor has shown that upside through a couple of games in the season. And you have Chickacongo at the tight end spot. You keep him. I think that he's a very good tight end in this league. He's not a top receiving tight end, but he's solid. So you're asking Cam Ward to go out there and elevate all these pieces around him. This is just a bad football team in certain areas. And the offensive line protection has been better in the last couple of games, but it's still not good. Players have regressed every single week underneath Brian Callahan, so he needed to go. Defensively speaking here, their defense is actually solid. You have some solid defenders up front. Tavondre Sweat, when he's fully healthy, he was a very good player before he got placed on IR, playing alongside Jeffrey Simmons. They're still waiting to see if L'Jarius Sneed can become one of the best cornerbacks in the game once again. I don't think that he will be. It's one of those situations you made a trade to bring this man in. Last season, he was terrible. Was dealing with injuries, sure, but he was still a terrible player. He hasn't been the same player since he left Kansas City. And a lot of reports came out that he wanted to stay in Kansas City, but Kansas City was not willing to pay him the money that he wanted to be paid. But here comes the Tennessee Titans. They say that we have a lot of money for you, and we'll trade a valuable draft pick to bring you in as well. And that's what they did. It is still a bad situation overall for the Tennessee Titans, but moving off of Coach Callahan was one of the best decisions that they could have made. The best decision, in my opinion, that they could have made. I wish that Amy Adams could sell this team. We have so many bad owners in today's NFL that it's not even funny at this point. The Cincinnati Bengals have a terrible owner. The Dallas Cowboys, the Tennessee Titans, the New York Jets, and the New York Giants. But we always come on here and we blame the players and we blame the coaches. But it starts up top with ownership. Look at the Washington Commanders. They had a terrible owner in Dan Snyder for so many years. As soon as that man sold the team, the energy was different around that organization. And look, Amy Adams, she may be a nice woman. This is nothing personal, but as a football mind, she definitely doesn't have it. Not even close. She's by far been one of the worst owners in the NFL. And I look at it from this standpoint. You just hope that Cam Ward can continue to develop all the way through. And hopefully you bring in the right head coach that can get the most out of him. I think that Cam Ward can be a very good player in this league. I really do. I think that he can be a top quarterback in the right situation with the right coach. But this is a common theme here with quarterbacks selected with the first overall pick. Trevor Lawrence a few years back had Urban Meyers as his head coach. They moved off him. Terrible head coach. That stunted the growth of Trevor Lawrence. Bryce Young with Frank Reich, completely terrible in his first season. They fired him halfway point in the season. That's back-to-back now. Then you have Cam Ward. First overall pick, Brian Callahan, you fire him after just 6 weeks of the season. It's a front office problem. But hopefully the general manager can come in, bring in the right coach, and they can bring in the right talent around Cam Ward. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Tennessee Titans, and did they make the right move by firing Coach Callahan early on this season? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.